Epoch 16 review and AMA. My name is Josh. I'm the governance lead at the dYdX Foundation. Happy to be joined today by Clifton and David from the dYdX Foundation and Corey and Xiaoming from dYdX Trading. For those of you who have been here before, I'm sure you understand the general agenda and process, but give everybody a quick level overview if there's any newcomers in the audience. So after this quick intro, we're going to go through a number of preloaded questions that were sent to me by the community over the past few days and stuff that came up on Commonwealth or in Discord. After that, we're going to jump into an open AMA format where anybody from the community feel free to raise a hand. We can bring you up on stage and you can ask your question directly to a member of the team. If you're uncomfortable kind of speaking, feel free to DM your question in real time. Again, we've been iterating on the process with these AMAs, process and format. So feel free to give us feedback. I think we always prefer that these AMAs are more of a conversation, so please feel free to raise a hand at the end and we'll keep it more informal conversation format. I would say the one thing to make sure this runs efficiently is just please do us a huge favor and make sure to pay attention to make sure your question has not been answered. Also, there is a POAP for this AMA, which we will announce kind of halfway through. I appreciate Alucard for dealing with that. With that, everybody, let's, I guess, just jump right into the questions for dYdX Trading. For those of you who don't know, dYdX Trading released a post about the recent completion of Milestone 2. Would be awesome if Corey or Xiaoming, you guys could just give a quick overview of what the completion of Milestone 2 means, and maybe if you want to go into longer format, what's up for the next milestones in the near future.
Cool, thanks Josh. I can talk about it. Hey everyone, my name is Xiaoming. I'm the engineer manager supporting the engineers in dYdX Trading for building for V4. So the milestone, we just completed the entire Milestone 2, I think probably around 2 weeks ago. Right now we're in the middle of building for Milestone 3. And the Milestone 2 essentially concluded the major essential MVP features for perpetual exchange, and also including launch a relatively stable internal test nets, which is like a staging environment, so we can testing a lot of the integration. So some of the Milestone 2 features including such as the order book exchange features, clock work, and parts of the major. One big updates in Milestone 2 is also the indexer work as well. So essentially the critical feature to operating an exchange on the protocol side. And going forward, the Milestone 3 will be including a set of advanced features for the perpetual exchange, such as the supporting for advanced order types, such as reduce only long-term orders, as well as more advanced feature on the indexer side, how we can ingest off-chain updates from the protocol to the indexer. And we're also building a few more advanced features on the liquidation perpetual side of things as well. So one of the question I think it was mentioned here is on the timing of Milestone 3, 4, 5. So overall, we're looking for targeting to complete Milestone 3 around February to late Q1. So that's our rough targets. And for Milestone 4, we're looking for somewhere between mid to late Q2, depends on how everything goes with the private testnet, which is the Milestone 3. It could go earlier, but it depends. So for Milestone 5, and which is essentially the mainnet launch, but we're currently targeting for Q3, but it could go sooner depending on how the private and public testnets goes.
Awesome. Appreciate you running through that. I think super helpful information. I think just quick follow-up question on the current milestone that dYdX Trading is working on, specifically Milestone 3. What do you anticipate are, I guess, like the biggest technical hurdles just in terms of like what the team is working on at this time?
Yeah, I would say there's no major technical hurdle at this particular moment. I would say the whole team is pretty much in the execution mode, and all the security components has been already designed out. We're really just execution. So the main determining factor is just how fast that we can execute. So in terms, there were some kind of interesting technical challenge or problem that we have stopped at the beginning of milestone 3 for some of the components designed, such as the indexer off-chain updates, and for example, how we can ingesting some of the off-chain order book function data into an indexer framework. And another example is the advanced order implementation, how we can building like a on-chain storing some of the advanced orders, like a long-term order on-chain. There's some product and engineering trade-off there. But all those components has been already well designed, and we're just in the middle of implementing those. So no particular technical hurdle at this moment. We're in the execution mode.
Yeah, fantastic to hear that everything is running along smoothly. I think just kind of jumping around to a more like general question about kind of market conditions and current market outlook. Maybe a question for Corey or anybody on the team, but just curious, what impact, if any, do you guys feel that the issues of everything that happened over at FTX has on dYdX?
Yeah, I could take this one. Fortunately, there was no impact to the product on dYdX. Obviously, as a decentralized exchange, we were immune to kind of all the contagion that occurred with FTX and its subsequent fallout. So if anything, it really just highlighted the need for decentralized exchanges to exist, and was kind of a highlight for us in a variety of ways. Just people talking about dYdX as a venue to trade on as they move away from centralized exchanges. So we certainly saw some amount of inflow from new users, I would say, who presumably migrated away from some centralized exchanges due to the risk throughout the industry. But yeah, all in all, no impact to the product itself. Certainly there were some dislocations in the market, specifically on Solana, which we addressed by increasing the initial margin fraction for some of these markets during really high volatile times. But beyond that, it was kind of business as usual for us.
Appreciate that update. I guess in your opinion, Corey, the main benefits of trading on a DEX versus a centralized exchange, or maybe highlighted a bit here, would be curious to hear if you feel the same and like what you think the main benefits are.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly from a custody standpoint, that was the main thing that was highlighted, us versus FTX or any other centralized exchange. When you deposit to FTX, you don't know what they're doing with your funds. So they could be lending it out, whatever. You don't know if the venue is solvent. But when you trade on a decentralized exchange, everything is fully on-chain. So at any moment in time, you could go to the smart contract, you could look on Etherscan and see how much money is in dYdX. And then secondly, like, no one could touch your money except you. So that is kind of another reason to use a decentralized exchange. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do anything with customer funds. So, it inspires confidence, I would say, for people. Certainly there's some amount of understanding you might need to have about like what the smart contracts do and if they've been audited and if they're safe, things like that. And I think the industry overall will have to deal with some of those questions over time. But things like this kind of just highlight the reason why decentralized exchanges should exist. And hopefully people will continue to like understand the trade-offs here over time.
All great points. Yeah, appreciate you going through that. I think jumping back a little bit to more along the lines of V4, was curious how many validators have expressed interest so far in joining to be validators on V4, as well as how many are going to be needed for testnet. I don't know if Corey or Xiaoming wants to take that.
Yeah, I can take on this one. Yeah, so we have plenty of validator that has already expressed interest. I think if a number is somewhere, I think it's more than 40 validator has reached out and have been spoken with so far. The final ones that we're choosing for private testnet, which is by end of the milestone 3, will be a subset of those based on our selection criteria. And in terms of final numbers, we're still working on the final numbers, but it's likely somewhere between 10 to 15, roughly on that ballpark. In terms of our selection criteria for private testnets, it will be based on a number of things. I think there's a few evaluation we're done is based on the previous testnet experience, if this validator have done for Cosmos especially, and how was our communication so far working with those validators. And the other important factor is also like a team size or bandwidth, and whether we can ensure some dedicated team members to focus on the dYdX chain, since this is the first time we're launching it, and we definitely want more buffer time to working with those validators to iron out the issues and improvements. Yeah, and we're still taking applicants for the testnet, the private testnet. If you're interested, definitely please reach out or apply. So this is specific for the private testnet, and the public testnet will be soon after, which is by end of milestone 4, and it will be permissionless, so everyone will be able to run a validator for that.
Awesome. And in terms of, I guess, like critical mass of validators, I know you guys have touched on this in the past, but maybe worth reiterating here. What is the, I guess, like target or max amount of validators on V4?
I think for private testnet, we're looking for somewhere between like 10 to 15. But after that, I think it really depending on the protocol, and it's going to be permissionless as well. So everyone technically could run it. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Appreciate it. I think also maybe a good question for you, Xiaoming, is just following up on when V4, I don't know if it's at the time of testnet or at the time of mainnet launch, but for external teams that want access to code to start potentially iterating on, building on dYdX, when would be the correct time for them to get involved?
Yeah, so eventually the protocol, V4 protocol itself will be open sourced. I think it's an actual open source timeline. We're still kind of determining, but it will be definitely before the release of V4. It could be happen after the private testnet, or it could happen on the public testnet as well. But yeah, the protocol itself, the code itself will be open source, so other teams all have the flexibility and transparency to build on top of it. And in terms of the timing of the open source, I think, yeah, like I touched on, it could be happen pretty much, I would say, somewhere between private and public testnet. I think in terms of other teams' ability to building on top of it, first thing, they have the flexibility. Second thing, to building an open source project. Secondly, is also depending on which feature the other team is building. For example, does it require the core protocol changes, or does it require some other features to enable first, like interchain account, cost wasm? So I think depending on what exactly feature they will be building on top of V4, it might require a different level of efforts, but overall, they will have the flexibility on it, and the timeline will be, the protocol will be open source, I think, in the testnet phases.
Sounds great. Appreciate it. And I think open question for the people from dYdX trading is just specifically with the V4 roadmap in mind, what is going to happen with V3, I guess like the current version of the product, before and after the release of V4? Corey, I don't know if that's better suited for yourself.
Yeah, I could take that one. So the plan is to keep V3 running for a little while. So certainly before V4 launches, V3 will continue to work. And then after V4 launches, both will likely work in parallel for some amount of time. But the goal is really to migrate the bulk of that liquidity over from V3 to V4. And so we'll think about how to adjust, the liquidity mining incentives and everything like that. But yeah, certainly both will kind of exist for a period of time, and we'll give everyone enough time to wind down their positions on V3 and migrate over to V4.
Awesome, appreciate that. Okay, guys, I think before we get into the questions for the dYdX Foundation, maybe we'll just go through the process for claiming the POAP for today's event. So if you are interested in claiming the POAP, Alucard will be sharing a note in the general channel with a form. Please fill that out. The secret word for today's AMA is perpetual. Again, that is perpetual. And that should be open for a limited amount of time. So if you want to claim your POAP, please go fill out the form. Thanks so much. I think that is it for dYdX trading questions in terms of preloaded questions. Again, if anybody else has anything on their mind that they would like the dYdX trading team to answer, please stick around. After we go through a few questions for the dYdX Foundation, we'll open it up to community questions. Again, quick reminder, if you're uncomfortable speaking, feel free to DM me, and I'll add it to our list of questions in the background here. Awesome. Okay, so moving on to the dYdX Foundation team. Recently, a proposal passed to essentially wind down the safety module. Was just curious if one of you guys could give a quick overview of that proposal and how it impacts stakers as well as dYdX users. Cliff, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, happy to. So we recently concluded an on-chain vote to wind down the safety module. I want to give everyone a TLDR on this proposal that Xenophone Labs actually raised. So essentially, the dYdX safety module pays dYdX rewards to its depositors, and in return, these depositors actually allow dYdX governance to slash their deposit in case of a protocol shortfall event, right? So the slash funds can actually be used by governance to kind of pay off the protocol's deficit. It was a creative idea which allowed the protocol to bootstrap insurance in a decentralized and self-sovereign way, but it had an issue, and that was the fact that the slashable asset was the dYdX token, and all of the dYdX's liability are actually in USDC. So in the event of a shortfall event that required the entire module to be slashed, it would actually result in the dumping of approximately 40 million dYdX token, which is roughly 29% of the total circulating supply, onto the market at the exact worst time, right? So Xenophone Labs is actually proposing to replace the safety module with a USDC pool instead. They had many different recommendations to do that, whether it is through dYdX USDC LP shares, or whether it is going on Aave using an AUSDC token, using Yearn YUSDC, etc. But the simplest and safest way was actually to just use USDC as the module's deposit asset. But given the team's intense focus to really build out V4, Xenophone Labs decided to actually push out the creation of this USDC pool to V4 once mainnet was launched. And the first step that they could take right now was to actually wind down the current iteration of the safety module as we know it. So the first step was to again eliminate the dYdX spending on the current safety staking module, and this actually will save the protocol 383,000 dYdX per epoch that was previously spent on a module with little effective insurance power. So essentially, on the latest on-chain DIP proposed, we have 29 million dYdX across 152 voters expressing their support to wind down the safety module. And right now, the changes have already been pushed out. The DIP has been executed. So over on the dYdX.community website, there is no longer the stake functionality on the safety module. We have also updated all of the verbiage on the safety module page to point users to the DIP, and we have also updated our documentation to note that the safety module has been effectively wound down. So I'd say like for users with staked dYdX, you guys have up till December 17th to request to withdraw your staked dYdX if you want to withdraw them in Epoch 18. So this is a change because we have also reduced the blackout window to just 3 days. Epoch 18 starts effectively on 20th December, so you have until December 17th to request to withdraw your staked dYdX in order to withdraw them in Epoch 18. And just for some context, we had a previous proposal to wind down the liquidity module and the borrowing pool. So this is very, very similar, and just to give you guys some context there on the metrics, the stake USDC has been reduced significantly from 40 million previously to now it's just sitting at like 818,000 USDC. Similarly, the rewards for staking USDC were set to 0, and the blackout period has been reduced to 3 days. So it's going to be the exact same for this implementation as well, where the rewards for staking dYdX is now set to 0. No one can stake new dYdX into the safety module, and the blackout period is now 3 days. So again, just to remind everyone, if you want to withdraw your stake dYdX in Epoch 18, you have until December 17th to request to withdraw, and you can do so on the dYdX community dashboard.
Great overview, Cliff. Appreciate that. I think for anybody who needs more information about requesting to withdraw, dYdX Foundation has documentation on this at the dYdX governance, governance documents, which we can share in the general channel. But if anybody wants more information about how to request to withdraw, please head there, or have a lot of the information in tweet form or on Discord.
Yep, sorry to jump in, but I was just gonna say that like we will be pushing out another round of announcements and tweet storms just to inform the community on how to actually request to withdraw their stake dYdXs on all the timelines, and also just to inform everyone that the rewards for staking dYdX has been set to 0. So keep a lookout for those announcements to come today.
Awesome. Cliff, I think maybe makes sense for another question for you. There's recently a proposal posted to revise the LP rewards formula. Do you want to just go into a brief description of what that proposal entails and how it impacts the community?
Yeah, so essentially, this is kind of like a good follow-up to the winding down of the safety module. So currently, we have the safety module effectively being wound down, and we also are looking, rather the community has been looking to reduce the usage of staked dYdX, the ERC20, in all the different parts of the dYdX protocol. And one of the areas which staked dYdX is a consideration is in the LP rewards formula, right? So previously, I believe 5% of the total weightage across all the LP rewards formula were for staked dYdX. So there is a follow-up proposal by Max Holloway as well from Xenophone Labs to kind of like reallocate that weightage. So he's proposing 2 ways. The first is to reallocate that stake dYdX component towards maker volume, sorry. So that's the first proposal. The second proposal is to just change the stake dYdX component to just dYdX holdings. They are recommending to go ahead with proposal 1, and that DRC has been posted on Commonwealth. So from a timeline perspective, they are waiting on the community for the LPs and market makers to actually give their comments and express their support for either proposal. And on December 5th, they will go ahead and launch a snapshot vote to effectively get the community's consensus to remove the stake dYdX component from the LP rewards formulas. So that's just like a quick overview of what's happened so far on that discussion.
Awesome. Appreciate the overview. I think just on the topic of governance proposals, there was also a snapshot proposal to create an operations sub-DAO. I know we have Carl and Derek in the audience from Reverie. Maybe we can get them to give a brief overview of that in a moment, as well as just like a brief overview on grants quickly. Cliff, do you just want to talk about the vote results quick of the snapshot and like what the next steps are?
Yeah, happy to. So the snapshot concluded a couple of days ago with 7.7 million dYdX. That's roughly 75% of the total vote count across 762 voters in support to launch the Operation Sub-DAO with 372,000 worth of dYdX tokens. So following this snapshot vote, the next steps are for a community member to create an on-chain DIP, because this involves the transfer of 372,000 dollars worth of dYdX tokens from the community treasury to the Ops Trust. And this is going to be a short time lock vote, which requires 5 million dYdX to create the on-chain DIP, 20 million minimum dYdX voted in yes for the proposal to pass, and it requires a 5 million dYdX vote differential. And I probably defer to Carl and Derek to explain like the purpose of creating this Ops Sub-DAO or Ops Trust.
Awesome. Have Carl successfully on stage. Carl,
hey,
do you...
Yeah, you're on the, yeah. Hey.
Awesome. Hope you're well. Just wanted to ask you if you could give, I guess, just a quick overview of maybe status of the proposal and like main motivation and purpose. I know dYdX Foundation hosted a separate AMA with the Reverie team on this topic. There's also like pretty, I would say, like rich info in the forums, but just like high level summary in your mind would be awesome, I think.
For sure. So the background here is that Reverie kind of led this initiative for the dYdX Operations Trust in following with the wonderful blog post that you guys put out with regards to a potential future dYdX DAO that would be run through a series of sub-DAOs to take ownership and control of all the different functionalities, parameters, and kind of roles and responsibilities to help manage dYdX in a more open setting. And so the goal here of the Operations Trust is really to, at least initially in this 6-month period, to deliver the DAO playbook, which will serve as a resource and kind of like step-by-step guide for community members to launch future sub-DAOs. Given the experience we have with the Grants Trust, which is kind of the first sub-DAO, even though whether or not it was intended to be, it kind of did become that way. And now in the future Operations sub-DAO will kind of eat our own cooking in that way. And we'll present the community with this experience that we've gone through in launching these two individual sub-DAOs and how to go about all the different legal hoops, the different entities that they can choose from when launching a sub-DAO, how to go about the governance process and kind of all of those steps. And so really the guide here is, the goal, I should say, is really to provide the community with full resource that they can turn to, so that it should be really easy for community members to launch new sub-DAOs, whatever it is that they choose to launch. That's up to the community, of course, but we just wanted to make it as easy as possible for a community member or a group of community members to launch a sub-DAO to take control of a particular aspect of the protocol. And then we're going to be doing a few different other operational functions, like setting up a bank account so that we can pay for traditional service providers like Slack, Discord, that sort of thing on behalf of the DAO, and that way the operations sub-DAO can be in charge of that, and the community can kind of be dependent on this one sub-DAO to pay all of those bills and kind of manage additional operational functions on behalf of the DAO. That'll most likely scale in the next iteration after this 6-month term. So we put out the proposal, we got the snapshot vote as mentioned, and now we're working on finalizing the actual Guernsey Purpose Trust agreement using legal counsel. So the snapshot serve as like community support that kind of gives us a green light to go ahead with this process now of setting up the multi-sig, setting up the trust agreement, and finalizing the contracts in order to actually transfer the funding that would be necessary from the community treasury. Our timeline is to try to get the proposal on chain by the end of this week. There's obviously a few moving pieces here, so we're going to push for that, and we'll see if we can make it based on like a few different legal steps and technical ones. But we're excited to probably next week for the on-chain proposal.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate the overview. I think next would make sense, Carl, if you just want to go through maybe some highlights of grants updates for everybody who doesn't know. Carl is part of Reverie, who is the enforcer in the dYdX Grants Trust. I think before then, just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, want to contribute to the discussion, feel free to raise your hands. And after Carl is done kind of running through grants updates, I can bring you up on stage to ask your question to any of the team members. Appreciate it. Carl, do you want to do a quick update on grants?
Yeah, for sure. So grants have been going on really well. We've kind of had a slower month in November, to be honest, and we're being quite selective. I'm not sure if everybody here managed to catch our latest update in October. Really recommend you reading that. We'll be releasing the November update by the end of this week, where we're going to share everything that happened. And so this will kind of be a TLDR as to what will be going into that. But what we shared in the last update was that we haven't allocated a lot of the international growth budget. And so we're focusing a lot of our attention towards that and trying to find good, productive, and impactful grants that we can issue within that category of the budget that was approved in the V1.5 proposal. Unfortunately, because of where the market is at right now, it's getting trickier to find productive grants there. It's not impossible, and there are opportunities, but we're just being really selective because we don't want this to just be like, we don't want to just spray across this budget, right? Because when it comes to marketing, it can easily end up that way. And so we're being a bit more cautious and selective with the grants that we issue within that budget to initially do like trial periods, kind of smaller-ish grants to see if we can justify a further cost with initial success metrics and some sort of kind of certification that it is actually working the way that we intended to. But we definitely do see some good opportunities still. So we're going to have a couple rounds in November, roughly a little under 100K in total funding, and about like 7 individual grants issued. Looking ahead, we just released the latest RFPs where we're looking at some pretty big ticket items that we're really excited about funding from more of a research perspective outside of this international growth budget. So I recommend everybody go check out the initiatives page on the grants website. We are looking to tackle MEV questions. We're looking to tackle multi-asset collateral, risk parameters, and lots of different initiatives as well that are super interesting. And we're kind of looking for super talented and highly enthusiastic teams that can help us answer these questions on behalf of the community, so that by the time V4 is launched, the community is ready to kind of tackle these important questions that we'll all be facing. Yeah, and then in terms of grants that have been issued, we're also seeing things move along really well. We had a few get completed this past month. We had like a great Meta Gals event that we sponsored in Mexico City. We had the merch team, as everybody saw, they kind of had that initial kind of tease launch and they're now getting ready for launch in the next couple of weeks. And a few of the research papers that we issued are in final draft state, which is getting reviewed before being published. And yeah, a lot of the other ones are also wrapping up, so we'll have lots of updates there. And yeah, highly encourage everybody to tune into our AMAs that are coming up. We have one later this week on Thursday with the analytics dashboard team, and then we're going to have one the week following Thursday with the dYdX effort grantee as well. I think I can probably wrap it up there. Like I said, I'll share a lot more in the monthly update that will be posted by the end of the week.
Awesome. We'll look out for the update. Appreciate you going through all of that, Carl. Again, for any community members who are in the audience today, if you have a question that you want to ask the team, feel free to raise your hand and we can bring you up on stage to ask your question to the relevant team member from the dYdX Grants Program, dYdX Foundation, or dYdX Trading. Don't see any requests, so we'll give everybody maybe another minute before we close things off. I guess just to go through process and closing items. If nobody has any questions, we'll definitely wrap this up in the next couple minutes. But generally what we do after these AMAs is we've recorded the audio, we will get it transcribed, and we will post both the transcript and the YouTube video for anybody that was not able to attend. So if you have any friends in the community that weren't able to make it today, feel free to let them know that they can check out the dYdX Foundation blog to listen in or read all of the info that was covered here today. If you want to go back and listen to part of the AMA, there was like some, I think, particularly interesting points about V4 development, as well as the grants program and the operations sub-dev. So feel free, I'll post the YouTube video later today, hopefully. Go back and listen. Still don't see any questions from any community members, so happy to close it off there, guys. Just want to thank everybody who made time to attend today, especially to our speakers and participants. So thanks to everybody from dYdX Trading, dYdX Foundation, and shout out to Carl. Thanks so much, guys. We will catch you next Epoch for the Epoch 17 review and AMA. There's also a ton going on in the community, so feel free to chime into any of the other events that are taking place later this week. I know there is the trading floor tomorrow, the hedging huddle is tomorrow, and on Thursday there's the dYdX grants review and AMA with Llama to cover the analytics dashboard that they completed. All right, guys, thanks so much for attending. With that, we'll close it off.
Thanks, everyone.